with all these tiny little paper cuts over the years of telling you that you're too much or you're not enough or there's something wrong with you or you feel too much or you're delusional, that you begin to mistrust yourself. But that, my friends, ends here. I want you to know that deep in your bones, that your depth is not a flaw. It's your power. Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to this module 1 for coming home to your inner truth. My name is Maria Sumilov, and I'm the founder of the Sumilov Academy of Human Integration and the author of the 4 People Within program, the INFx Unveiled program, the INFx Deep Dive program. I've spent the last 20 plus years mentoring emotionally intelligent souls like yourself, especially the INFJs and INFPs, who are seeking clarity and confidence and connection in the world that often doesn't see them. I'm not here to fix you, but I'm here to remind you that although you may feel that the world has broken you, that you can never be broken. There's a seed within you, a golden light within you, that if you learn how to reconnect with, that you can, in fact, become unbreakable. So I'd like to start with something pretty radical, but oftentimes very deeply true, that when you feel broken and when you feel like the world has taken you down, that it's an amount of micro breaks, micro fractures of being misunderstood and misinterpreted that can often lead you to feel like you're broken. Now, if you're an INFJ or an INFP, you likely spent most of your lifetime swimming at a depth that most people either can't follow you into or won't. And you may have felt that the intensity of the world that you're living in and that internalized intensity within you, if you let it in, that it makes you believe that there's something wrong with you. But I'm here to ask you, I'm here to challenge that, so if there's anything wrong with you, and ask you, what if it's not that there's something wrong with you? What if it's just that there's something really rare about you? And what if you're not too sensitive? But what if you're just too tuned in? What if you're not too quiet? But what if you're actually really reflective? And what if you're not actually indecisive, but you're discerning? What if when all this inner richness is misread or dismissed, and it's that leads to this deep disconnection of you with your world? You start to doubt your inner compass. You can start to abandon your own needs and wonder if maybe you're just too much or not enough. Does that sound familiar? The fact of the matter is that INFs, INFJs, and INFPs, we just have a really unique inner world. And we tend to live from inside out, because our inner world is so rich and it's layered and it's deeply symbolic. And it's where our meaning for the world lives. It's where we hold space for nuance, and it's also where we often hide when the outer world just becomes too harsh or indifferent. You know, you've probably noticed this, we are meaning makers. We seek for the soul in the world that often doesn't embrace it. We're emotional translators. You know, we don't just feel, we process, we digest, we transform what we feel into wisdom. And that's not the norm. And because our world is so internal, it is invisible for most. And then when the world doesn't see us clearly, which does happen, we learn to shrink our world. We learn to morph into different roles. We learn to please and we learn to perform. And if you've done the INFx Unveiled program, you know we talk about the chameleon effect. We don't do those things because we're weak, but because we are wired to preserve our connection to the world, even at the cost of parts of ourselves. And there's a reason why traditional kind of advice, life advice, doesn't really work for us a lot of the times, but it is where it gets tricky. Because most personal development advice is designed for kind of fast-paced, extroverted, action-first types. You know, just do it, or push harder, or push through, or just be confident, or fake it until you make it, which I'm sorry, I fucking hate that advice. That's not even advice, that's just pretending. So what if we're not meant to even follow that? What if we need deeper tools? You don't need louder advice, at least I don't. I need deeper tools. And I don't need to be told or act to be someone else. I need support in returning to who I really am. So peeling away the layers of who I am not to get to the core of who I am. And because transformation for introverted, intuitive feeler types doesn't happen through hype, it's hard to find places where you can do your full internal process and integration in a safe space. I find a lot of the time that my integration works happens only in safety and only in spaces of resonance. And through reclaiming my trust in my own inner knowing, especially after it's been dismissed and ignored and gaslit for such a long time. And so if this is you, please know that you're not alone. There's a misunderstood genius of intuitive feelers, and especially introverted intuitive feelers, that I've seen in thousands of people that I've worked with, helping them heal. I think a really good wording for it is we are soul architects. You know, we pick up on what others maybe miss. We know things without always being able to explain how we know things. We read between the lines. We sense what's unspoken. And that thing that most of the world thinks makes us crazy, or they label us, you know, crazy or airy-fairy, or there's definitely not a way that you can know that stuff. We need to relabel that as a gift, not to trust explicitly because we still see things through our biases, but we need to start seeing it as a gift of our own journey of becoming. And there is a very painful truth that we need to face in order to give ourselves permission to get into it fully, get into our own healing fully. And that is that in a world that values logic over intuition and productivity over presence, your gifts can be mislabeled as a weakness. You might have been called overly dramatic or too idealistic or overthinking. I remember when with my ex-husband, I felt so deeply unseen and not considered that when I cried for the first time in our relationship over 10 years, and he witnessed this, that he called me melodramatic. And I have never been stabbed in my heart so deeply in my life. Oof, I knew that relationship was over in that moment. That I wasn't allowed to have emotions. And also, he was the person who was lying to me and gaslighting me about what he was doing when I called him on it. And had a bad reaction to it when I had a reasonable reaction to an unreasonable situation. He ridiculed me for that. Melodramatic. Oof, still hurts. And this kind of mislabeling hurts. And over time, it can really convince you to dim your light or distrust your gifts. And it's designed to make you fit in more. And when you fit in, you actually don't belong. Ooh, I knew I was alone in that relationship from that moment on. Not because he made a mistake and said those things, but because he wasn't willing to repair. So belonging doesn't come from changing who you are. It comes from honoring who you are and being seen as who you are. So there is a cost for being unseen or being mislabeled. And the cost of it is not just the confusion that you'll feel. If you don't know how to hold your ground, the cost is also self-abandonment. And thankfully, I didn't abandon myself in that moment, not fully. I abandoned myself for the short time to manage and try to repair my relationship with this person, which couldn't be repaired. But I didn't abandon myself for evermore. I allowed him to show me who he was, and then I chose myself. It's the silence that comes when your soul wants to speak and there's no point saying anything. There's a cost around exhaustion of trying to explain yourself and your heart in a language that nobody seems to hear. It's really taxing. And when you're being taxed, that's why you might feel anxious and stuck or burned out or even ashamed of how deeply you feel. Because somewhere along the line, with all these tiny little paper cuts over the years of telling you that you're too much or you're not enough or there's something wrong with you or you feel too much or you're delusional, that you begin to mistrust yourself. But that, my friends, ends here. I want you to know that deep in your bones, that your depth is not a flaw. It's your power. And we are here to help you reclaim it. And it's not going to be, hysterical hype. any of that extroverted crap. It's a quiet reclaiming of your dignity and your power. So here's a call to action for you for today. Take a moment, reflect on how your emotional patterns have been shaped by you being unseen and unheard and misunderstood and misrepresented. Just take a minute and reflect on the patterns, the emotional patterns that have been shaped by those experiences. Where have you felt that you need to hide yourself? Where have you felt that you need to morph yourself into some other person? Where have you had to minimize your truth? What would you shift if you had tools and language and support that actually honored your emotional and intuitive self? So when you recognize the pattern, then where have you had to hide or morph yourself to fit in? To fit in, remember, not belong, fit in. And what would shift for you if you had the tools and language and support that actually honored who you are, all of who you are? Okay, so that's the focus for today. Take some time to tune into that. And if you need help with it, we at the Sumilov Academy, we offer deeper tools and warm mentorship and a space for you to just be your full self as you're working through these challenges that you're experiencing. If you're tired of feeling misunderstood, if you're longing to reclaim your clarity, and if you need a place to be witnessed, join us at sumilov.com. And if you don't, take the time to really feel into this exercise and give yourself the full permission to love yourself and to claim yourself. You are needed in this world now more than ever. Thank you for being here. I'll see you at the next one.